This edition of Monocle on Saturday was first broadcast on the 8th of November 2025. Hello, I'm Georgina Godwin, broadcasting to you live from Midori House in London. This is Monocle on Saturday. Coming up on today's programme, we'll have a look through the week's news and culture with the journalist and author Tessa Szyszkowitz. Then we celebrate this year's Goldsmiths Fiction Prize. That's all ahead here on Monocle on Saturday. First, the news. North Korea warned it may take more offensive action after condemning US security talks with Seoul and the arrival of a US aircraft carrier. The threat came a day after Pyongyang fired a ballistic missile and denounced new US sanctions linked to alleged cyber money laundering. The US Supreme Court has allowed the Trump administration to delay releasing about $4 billion needed to fully fund food aid for 42 million low-income Americans during the shutdown. The order buys time for lower courts to review the administration's bid to provide only partial funding for November's payments. And Tesla shareholders have approved a compensation plan that could give Elon Musk up to $1 trillion if he meets a demanding set of long-term goals. Supporters say the package reflects the Musk premium that underpins Tesla's valuation, while critics warn that keeping him within the guardrails may prove the harder task. And that's your Monocle Radio News. Hello and welcome to Monocle on Saturday. Well, somebody who's, I'm sure, worth trillions is Tessa Szyszkowitz, and luckily she's not charging us that to appear on the show today. Tess is an author. She's the UK correspondent for the Austrian weekly magazine Falter. Good morning to you.
Yeah, very good morning to you too.
We all believe we should be paid more, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
But perhaps not as much as Musk.
Certainly not as much as Musk, who we have been seeing all these Tesla takedown demonstrations, protests in the States and all over Europe, and the Tesla sales are really, really down in Europe, and he still makes money, and it's just incredible. And he's now sort of on paper at least the richest man in the world.
And it's interesting reading the article because sort of various analysts are saying that what they're afraid of is that he'll exit, he won't concentrate on Tesla, and he'll eventually exit taking all of his AI know-how with him. And one man said it's like Tesla without Musk is like pizza without cheese.
Yeah, absolutely. But the good thing is that at least he's out of the US administration, where he didn't play a very constructive role in the spring. So we see now that his concentration apparently has shifted from destroying America back to Tesla, where he could play a good role for the shareholders and for himself. So we'll see. The problem is with him that the older he gets, the more erratic his behavior is. So we really don't know if he can focus long enough on Tesla to make all this happen. But I think more than his personal involvement now is that you have to, create all the businesses and the profits in this AI-driven and new industries that are being promised to the shareholders by investing so much money. And at the moment, the profits in all of this is just not secured. So we'll see how it works, because this is a 10-year plan, what they are setting up, and we'll have to see if he can actually deliver it. Yeah.
I wonder what goes on in his head. Wouldn't you love to be his psychoanalyst if he even has one?
Oh, absolutely. And, if you saw how he went on stage at the presentation now with his robot Optimus, dancing with him, and these robots are also getting better. So in case that Elon Musk's psychological state of mind declines, I think we'll have to trust on the robots that will deliver.
Now, you've been talking to a very interesting psychoanalyst.
Oh, I had a really great time yesterday. In our job, I'm a political reporter usually, so I have death and destruction is usually my topic. Also in the UK politics, unfortunately, here. But yesterday I had the pleasure to meet Stephen Grosz, who is a psychoanalyst who not only is a psychoanalyst who sits in his office and sees his patients and helps them, hopefully, which is good enough already for us trying to save the world and a little bit of a positive impact on our society. But also he writes books about it, where he, after having asked his patients if he can use some of their stories, of course changing also their identities so that they can't be recognized, but then he writes about them, and it's so, for me, to read his books is wonderful. And the newest one that came out now just in German, that's why I was invited for the interview, is the English title is Love's Labor. So we are playing a little bit in direction of Shakespeare and Rainer Maria Rilke, and we are all talking about how love is not just a promise like in pop songs of delight and easiness and passion, but it's also actually kind of hard work, of course, to make it work. As you and I know well, Georgina, because we have had sort of already a life.
But we're finally with the partners we should have always been with, I think.
I mean, I don't know if we can generalize it that much, but we're definitely with partners that we should be with now, and we're very happy in our places there. And so Stephen Grosz is sort of, in this interview yesterday, we were sitting in Hampstead, where you're supposed to be, of course, surrounded by Freud's atmosphere, and we were talking about how people come to the, how people understand in psychoanalysis a little bit better why they are how they are, and that's already a big step towards sort of building constructive relationships.
I love this quote from the book: "To see the light, you have to go down into the dark." And this piece in The Guardian says, his patients often learn that pain or darkness cannot be avoided. To love fully, one must accept the reality of loss. To live fully, one must accept the reality of death. What a privilege it must be to accompany another person so closely as they try and figure out the challenge of living, of change and love, and accepting love and change. And what a privilege it is for the reader to catch a glimpse of this process. Sounds like an amazing book.
It is. I can really recommend it, because you have the feeling all of these patient stories are a little bit about yourself. We've all been there. For example, there's one of his patients, she always comes late. And you don't come late to your sessions as at a psychoanalyst's office, because it's extremely expensive, of course. And so he discusses why it is that people come too late, and he's trying to help her understand what triggers it for her. And then I always struggle with this, that I come late to things. I don't come late when I'm invited to the Monocle studios, as you could see this morning. But often I try to fit things in that are so super important for me, and then it's unnecessary, of course, to fit this in, and you could leave earlier. And so his interpretation was, and we discussed it yesterday, that people who have felt that their absence is more important than their presence are the ones who might come late, because they sort of trigger something that they say, like, if I'm not there, you'll miss me. If I'm there, you'll just take it for granted. And these kind of thoughts, you can turn it around. It can fit for you. It must not fit for you. But it's super interesting, because it gets you to think a little bit how your behavior sort of comes about, why you are how you are, what your parents have to do with it, what your partners have to do with it, how you choose a partner that you then model into your parents. And if you're aware of what you're doing, that's what I learned in my psychoanalysis, is it doesn't mean that you solve all problems, but it means that you can be a little bit more open and a bit more generous, and also hopefully a bit more kind to yourself and to everyone around you.
How long did you have psychoanalysis for?
4.5 years.
And frequency?
4 times a week.
Yeah, I did.
Classic.
I did 5 times a week for 2 years.
Incredible.
And I had to stop in the end, because I found, and at the time I was looking after my elderly mother, and it was very physical, very hands-on looking after her. And within the psychoanalysis sessions, I found what I was talking about was how much I hated my mother. And then I would have to go home and tenderly, change her sheets or whatever, clothes. And it was incompatible. I couldn't do the two. I had to not talk about my feelings for her. And I don't think I did hate her, but it was just this. That's the kind of thing that comes out in psychoanalysis.
Yeah, but it's very intense. But did it not also make you more aware of the fact why you had these strong feelings? Because then sometimes I could deal better with myself when I realized why things came together in my childhood and later on, and then if you take care of your mother, it's okay to have strong feelings, sure. Also negative feelings, yeah. Because it's difficult.
I mean, what I find now, and my conclusion at the end of that was, I would much, much rather look forward than back. And I lost patience with examining my childhood and all the rest of it. It's like, okay, all of that stuff happened, and now let's look forward. And that's what I'm focused on now. I want to embrace the next thing and really have some kind of. I mean, I think psychodynamic therapy is much better CBT.
Well, yeah, but Stephen Grosz might say, first of all, there's this therapy, different therapies for different things and different people in different situations. But what he would probably also say as a Freudian psychoanalyst is that you do, by looking back, you're looking forward because you're making your life possibly at least more aware and you are making it better in the future.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, let's talk about embracing the new, because you have just been to meet the new generation of Democrats.
That's true. I went to San Francisco last week, and now in all this excitement around Zoran Mamdani winning in New York, I was looking into how these... after 1 year now since Donald Trump was elected for the second time and the Democratic Party falling into complete depression, if you think that if you ask people now who is the leader of the Democratic Party, there's a long silence. Mm. And of course, Kamala Harris is still sort of the only known Democrat with a 2-digit popularity, about 16% or something. So it's a bit of a difficult period they're going through, which is also, logical because somebody else won. But they are trying now to use this positive excitement around Mamdani to bring a new generation of young Democratic politicians to the forefront. And it's quite interesting because you have these more centrist people, like the two women who won the governor elections in Virginia and in New Jersey. But you also have, of course, a progressive wing that is coming about. And I am really hoping that both of these wings can be integrated in the Democratic Party in the attempt to make this a broad church, because also America, of course, is a broad country, and it would be good to have left-wingers and centrists in the party to battle it out. So in San Francisco this week, Nancy Pelosi, she is 85 years old now. She's sort of the towering figure, also not only of the Californian Congress members, but she has managed the Congress itself, the House of Representatives, and has been the strategic force number one. And after her now, the big question is, for example, two interesting personalities from San Francisco, Scott Wiener and Saikat Chakrabarti, are sort of getting into line to succeed her. And one is a more business-friendly man who is not a young man anymore, because he has been waiting for quite a long time that she exits the scene so that he could step into her big shoes. And that's Scott Wiener, who is very well known. But the other one is quite interesting because Chakrabarti made quite a lot of money and is wealthy himself, because he's a founder and startup man who worked for AOC and ran her campaign when she was elected to Congress. And so they are this generation of representing democratic politics, which is now all coming together in really discussing something that the Americans need, which is how to lower costs of living. And that's something that brings now together the more progressive and also the more centrist Democrats. And that's actually quite a good concept now to start into the next 3 years in order to possibly win the next elections. But none of these people we are just discussing now will be the candidate for the presidential elections, of course. I mean, it's now the period where they have to build up the party again and get a hold on next year's elections, midterms elections, and also try to gain a new awareness in the population that the Democrats actually stand for classic democratic, social democratic issues, ideas to get the attention of the voters, which they have been losing in the last years, unfortunately.
And there's a couple of others who haven't declared yet, but might. There's London Breed, who's the former mayor of San Francisco, but also Nancy Pelosi's daughter.
Yes. I mean, she, of course, Nancy Pelosi is hoping that she will come in, and they are all, they are all very established figures already. What I find interesting is that you have you have the sort of course, classic legacy families like the Pelosi's now and her daughter, but you do have this new generation of second-generation migrant background families, and that's a really interesting part of the U.S. Political scene now, as you have it here in Britain also, where, people have this energy of immigrant families that are just a bit more, I think, energetic than the classic sort of what you see. Because, so, for example, I don't know how the battle will end between Pelosi daughter Weiner and Chakrabarty, for example, for the seats in San Francisco to be elected to the House of Representatives, but to Congress. But it's sort of, and I have the feeling that there's something very interesting about the Mamdani generation now, because they have the attention that where people have the feeling it's really about their living circumstances because they come from there, and it's not about the old establishment and their children to come in. You had the Bushes and you have now the Pelosi's, and you can have all sorts of, this is the normal. But I think people have a certain interest now in finding a new kick for politics, and it works because it worked with Mamdani. So my guess is that it will work in other places too.
Let's continue talking about new and exciting things, because the Goldsmiths Prize was established in 2013 to reward fiction that breaks the mould and reflects the pioneering spirit of Goldsmiths University. A £10,000 annual prize is awarded to a book that demonstrates true originality and captures the ingenuity of the genre at its finest. Well, joining me now to tell us more is the chair of the prize, who is Amy Sackville, and also the 2025 winner, Chris Rose. Amy, Chris, welcome to you both. Amy, tell us about the history and the purpose of the prize.
Morning, Georgina. Nice to be here. So the prize was set up in 2013, as you said, to reward fiction that breaks the mould or extends the possibilities of the novel form. So the idea is that we might have this kind of received idea of the novel as belonging in a kind of realist tradition, and there's nothing wrong with realist novels, but the prize aims to sort of recognise the fact that even from its inception, the earliest novels set this precedent that they're written when there were no rules or conventions, and we find the rules being broken as fast as they're made. So Lawrence Sterne, who wrote Tristram Shandy, is sort of the guiding spirit of the prize in a way, and he wrote a letter to a friend describing Tristram Shandy as something new or quite out of the beaten track. And I think that's what the prize is looking to reward, is this kind of exploratory restlessness with the form.
Well, let's bring in the winner now. So that's Chris Rose, CD Rose. Congratulations to you. Tell us about your book and how it fits this brief.
The book is what I've used the term coined by Olga Tokarczuk, the Nobel Prize winner, who's used the term constellation novel to describe some of her books, in which it's several different parts which kind of orbit around the same fulcrum. So my book isn't a beginning, middle, end, straightforward realist narrative. It begins with a description of a large-scale art installation in London sometime in the late teens, in which a number of people, including the artists themselves, seem to go mysteriously missing. They disappeared into this artwork. And then it goes on through another 12, 13 sections, which tell an episode from the life of somebody who was either directly or more vaguely involved with this installation project, coming to a close in which there is what might be the comeback of the said artist at the beginning, doing another exhibition. So it's not formally typical. As I said, there isn't a beginning and end of straightforward narrative, but it does draw on many of the traditions of narrative prose.
It's called We Live Here Now. Amy, what for you stood out about this book?
It's such a superb novel, and I think that constellatory form that Chris has described it's really satisfying as a reader, in the sense of a satisfaction that is really demanding. Like, it's really a sort of elusive. You feel like you're tracing these motifs and echoes through the whole book and picking them up, and it felt very timely to me. So I think one of the things that a novel can do is reveal a new way of looking at the world, or question our ways of seeing the world, and the way that it explores all these kind of systems that underpin the way that the world functions in very sort of material terms. So there's this exploration of kind of shady art markets and shipping and arms dealerships, and it's it feels like it's really speaking to something that we kind of intuit but maybe choose not to look at.
Amy, thank you very much indeed. That's Amy Sackville, who's chair of the Goldsmiths Prize, and the winner, this year's winner, C.D. Rose. Congratulations to you. Now, still with me in the studio is Tessa Szyszkowitz. And Tessa, there have been a plethora of prizes. This is prize time, of course, in Britain. So last week we had the Baillie Gifford Award for Non-Fiction, and I actually chaired that event, and it was wonderful. Really, really beautifully run event, actually, I have to say, and very exciting. It was won by Helen Garner. She is, I think she's 82 years old, Australian, and she has written a book about, it's her diaries. It's called How to End a Story. It's 800 pages, pretty big book. And her diaries are very frank. They were kept between 1978 and 1998, and it really drills down into like her breakdown of her relationships, and she kind of really explores the worst of her own behaviour. It's a very brave book to write in lots of ways. And so, I mean, it was quite funny. We sort of connected to her on Zoom, and she was totally shocked. She was in Melbourne, and it was just like, what? I won this. But anyway, I've interviewed her now, and that will go out on Meet the Writers tomorrow, so people can hear much more about that book at that time. And then, of course, we've got the Booker Prize, which is on Monday, and on Tuesday morning we'll be speaking to one of the judges of that prize on The Globalist. And it's, again, just a life-changing award to get for a writer. But how do you get to that point? So one of the books I'm reading at the moment is by Maggie Smith, who's the American poet, not the deceased English actress, because that would be weird to be talking to someone who has passed on, as they say. Maggie Smith's book is called Dear Writer, Pep Talks and Practical Advice for the Creative Life. And it's for writers striving to win the Goldsmiths, the Booker, the Baillie Gifford. This is the book you need to read. I'll actually be speaking to Maggie at the Dock Street Theatre in Charleston, South Carolina, next week. The Charleston Literary Festival is on. In fact, it started yesterday, and I'll be there next weekend, speaking to Maggie about this book and basically how to write properly. But we're talking about how to write properly. What about writing badly? There's a great piece in the FT today about what makes a bad book.
Yeah, that's true. And I always wonder about how because as journalists, of course, we have to read so many of the books that come out, and then you are doing reviews on them. And I always wondered, do I write reviews on the books I like and I think are great and that the readers should know about, or do we inform people that also things can go really, really badly wrong? And so Simon Cooper who writes this piece, What Makes a Bad Book, in the FT this weekend. And Simon, of course, sitting surveying European books being written and sort of looking into it. He has sampled the worst bits of them. And so he says, My Defense is one of the really bad books, because he's a football expert also, so he can vouch for this, and it's by the former footballer Ashley Cole. And then he has, of course, also a book by Nadine Dorries, who would former British politician, good friend of Boris Johnson. Her book is called The Plot. That goes for me, by the way, pair to pair with a book that I recently had to at least peek into, the memoir of the former British Prime Minister Liz Truss. Her book was called 10 Years to Save the West. As you can imagine, she had quite interesting ideas of how to do that, as she always has when she was in power too. And on the list of Simon Cooper is also Eurabia by Bad Eor, who is, this is a sort of weird choice actually, because it's a kind of conspiracy book that was published a while ago. But it must have stuck in his mind because it's a conspiracy theory of how not to solve the Middle East conflict. And so I was thinking, what triggers me actually? And there's one book that when it came out, I thought like, what? And that was Douglas Murray's book, The Strange Death of Europe, which is sort of, it came out after Brexit here. It was 2017. And I thought, the only thing that Brexit actually showed is how good the European Union is in the end. And so for me, Douglas Murray was completely out of sync with the reality. But as you see now, a lot of people think that Europe is going under and that all this threat of mass immigration will bring down our civilization, I would think. So I think for me, Douglas Murray represents this really sad group of people who are just not understanding how a globalized migration society works, and that we have to deal with the fact that different cultures have different traditions. It doesn't mean that everyone wants to destroy Europe.
Because, you've written your own Brexit book, haven't you?
I have at the time, but it was more focused, of course, on the UK, and I looked into the broader historical perspective that I had the feeling that Britain never sort of came to grips with the fact that the empire is over and that Britain now is a middle-sized power that should better get on with allies and partners around themselves instead of, what the Brexiteers did, dream of a renaissance of greatness that is just not available now. And by now, even here now you have a majority that people understood that Brexit was just not a great idea economically and in no other reason as well. The young people can't travel as they did. it was just not a great idea. And so this whole thing for me fuels a thing that, okay, we can discuss Douglas Murray and saying like, okay, Europe is committing suicide. But I think actually Europe should pull together, including Britain, and sort of make something out of this rather complicated, complex and not easy to handle situation that we need to have a defense of democracy and not declare the death of Europe.
I was thinking about what books I really hate. And there's one that was entirely circumstantial. He's obviously a brilliant writer, but I read John Steinbeck's Red Pony when I was about 11 as a horse-mad child. And of course the horse dies in this. So it was very traumatic. And it was years and years and years before I was able to read Steinbeck again. And I still, that book really freaks me out.
But what did he want to tell us with the story? Because he's probably not a horse torturer, or he didn't want to instill terror.
It's a coming-of-age story, and it's about resilience and how to deal with loss and all the rest of it. I mean, and then the other thing that really triggers me is kind of African tropes in writing. So the cover would be a flat-topped, thorny acacia tree in silhouette against a sunset, perhaps. And inside it would be a white person writing about how much they really loved their nanny. There are a lot of books like that, and people send them to me all the time.
Yeah. So shall we have a shout out for better book covers maybe also?
Well, absolutely. But I mean, there's some fantastic design around. There really is. But actually, if you want to leave this on a positive note and how to write absolutely brilliantly, do go and have a look at the weekend edition, our email. It's also that goes out to anybody who signs up. It's free. You can also get it on our website, because Andrew Tuck is writing in there today. He says, do you want to be a better writer? And then his suggestion is to go to the Cecil Beaton Fashionable World exhibition at London's National Portrait Gallery. He says that the little, the cards that you have alongside the pictures, just 75 words each. He says they're absolutely brilliantly written. And he's telling everybody to go and have a look at that and learn how to be a great writer, which I think is great advice.
Perfect. Let's go.
And let's go from here too. Thank you so much for being with me, Tess, and thank you, listeners, for joining us here on Monocle on Saturday. And thanks also to Amy Sackville, CD Rose, and to our producer and studio engineer, Mariella Bevan. Next week, Emma Nelson will be in the seat because, as I say, I'll be in Charleston and then at the Miami Book Fair, but back a couple of weeks later. I'm Georgina Godwin. Thank you for listening.